Chapter 4 Nightmares. We were running from an unknown enemy through a dark forest. The trees had very little detail and seemed to be more of a smudge. The heavy footsteps of our chasers thundered behind us, but were thankfully growing more and more faint. Soon the only footsteps that could be heard were ours. In my haste, I tripped over a root. One of my fellow runners came back to help me out while the other two continued forward. It was Jeff, one of my friends. He grabbed me by the arms and pulled me back to my feet. "Hurry, Hunter!" His voice sounded distant. "We don't have time for this. He's coming!" I nodded in agreement and followed his lead. Truth be told, I didn't know who or what we were running from, just that it was imperative that we get away from it. Twists and turns littered our path. Jeff navigated through the maze of trees with ease, as if he had the entire area mapped out in his head. One of the turns led us into a small clearing in the forest. In the middle lay a large mass of twisted wood. A familiar growl sounded as said mass broke apart into four separate smaller bodies, three of which advanced upon us as the fourth one stayed in the middle. Three bodies of twisted plant life were masked in dancing shadows, but I could easily tell that they were those dreaded timber wolves. Their glowing eyes gave it away. They attacked. One of them lunged at Jeff while another aimed its attention to me. The wolf and I thrashed across the ground, wooden claws digging into skin and fingers ripping off stray branches. Soon, I was pinned to the ground with the beast above me. Almost all hope was given up as it lowered its head down to mine. Suddenly, my attacker flew off of me. I was momentarily stunned at the empty space above my head. I felt a hand pull me back up and pat me on the back. "You all right, Hunter?" Jeff asked. I cast a quick glance as the two ruined timberwolves piled on to the side. Once again, Jeff had saved my life. I answered with a brisk nod and turned to the third wolf. Something was different about this one. Unlike the others, this one never attacked. It simply observed. Its eyes were different too. Instead of pure glowing yellow eyes, it had two crimson pupils, only slightly larger than the other was one of them. My, human. You have quite the active imagination," it mused. I was caught off guard by its capability to talk. "It's such a shame that it all has to be locked up for when you sleep. Imagine the fun you could have if we unlocked your full potential." It let out a sigh and sat down. "Oh well, I suppose it's my cue to leave. I look forward to our next visit. Ta-ta!" With that, it dissolved in the non-existent wind, leaving Jeff and I alone with the fourth pile. "Jeff," I called, "you saw that too, right?" "What are you talking about?" was my blunt response. "We don't have any time for your games. Hunter, Tanner is hurt." My eyes widened. "What?" Jeff said that last line with such ease. It made the revelation sound so fake. But sure enough, as we approached the gory pile of flesh, blood, and tattered clothes, he was right. I dropped to my knees on the spot with only one thought on my mind. How? I felt the hand on my shoulder. "Come on, there's nothing we can do for him." As Jeff spoke, Tanner's body slowly dissolved into the ground. "We need to find the others before it's too late." A bitter feeling in the back of my mind told me he was right. I reluctantly followed him away from the clearing where my brother died. It occurred to me that I didn't know what the fourth runner looked like. All I could recall was an oddly shaped silhouette running with Tanner. Come to think of it, I still didn't know why we were running. Just that we were running away from something. Something horrible. "Ah!" I shouted as I fell to my knees. That blasted headache. Why wouldn't it go away? A deep roar echoed throughout the forests. I could hear footsteps, but Jeff and I weren't moving. They were close, too. "Go, go, go!" Jeff screamed. He wasted no time on waiting for me to come to my senses. Instead, he practically dragged me up to my feet and pulled me away from the thundering footsteps. An arctic chill ran through my bloodstream, along with the many other signs of fear. Unlike last time, where the footsteps eventually faded away, these seemed to be getting louder. It was unrelenting. It was merciless. It was maddening. A stone sanctuary broke through the trees, almost as if it heard our silent pleas. We ran into the castle and slammed the large wooden doors closed. A ghoulish howl rattled the walls of the castle as our chaser bashed against the front door. We pushed our backs against the door to keep it closed. Eventually, our Chaser gave up. I could hear the footsteps slowly trudge away. Jeff was the first to relax, and progressed further into the sanctuary. Of all the time she could have fallen asleep, he complained. I turned around in curiosity to see what had caused his remark. There, lying down ever so peacefully, slept a familiar yellow and pink Pegasus. Jeff scooped her up in his arms and returned to me. Here, he said, depositing the mare into my arms. Take her. I'm not going to keep up with her. For a second, all seemed peaceful. I was with my friend. The Pegasus was safe in my arms, and we were safe, more or less. I didn't care that I had to carry the burden of the Pegasus's weight. All was well just as long as we were safe. Another howl rattled the interior, breaking my fragile sense of security. Once again, the Chaser was bashing against the doors. With nothing propping the door shut, the Chaser was sure to get in. "Quick! Through the back!" shouted Jeff. He ran out a door that appeared out of the blue. Without hesitation, I followed. We were back in the forest. A dark fog shrouded the earth from our vision. Nevertheless, Jeff navigated the area with such ease. A feral cry resounded throughout the darkness. As if by magic, the fog lifted to reveal a quickly fracturing ground beneath us. Chunks of earth dropped into a bottomless chasm. Soon we were stranded on one of the many small floating islands. The earth began crumpling underneath Jeff's feet. Before I had a chance to help him, he was already long gone. "Jeff!" I cried into the new hole. There was no response. What was I going to do? Without Jeff to guide me, I was practically lost. He couldn't be gone. No, that wouldn't make any sense. He was probably just waiting for me to follow his lead, right? Maybe he would have come back if I didn't follow him right away. "Please," I pleaded. "Please don't be gone." Another roar shook the already fragile earth. More chunks began falling. I looked at the empty space that was once occupied by my friend. It mocked me, laughing at my desperate hopes that my friend was going to help me again. "Okay, I see how it is," I finally said. I adjusted the Pegasus in my arms and turned away from the hole. After taking a deep breath, I ran as far away from the horrid place as I could. I didn't know what was chasing us, but whatever it was, I wanted it gone. Because of it, my brother was eaten alive, Jeff was gone forever, and I was utterly lost. Pegasus and I were the only surviving runners left, and I was not about to let this thing take her away from me. I was not going to be alone. Footsteps thundered behind me as I ran through what was left of the decimated forest. There was nowhere to hide. I wouldn't be able to run away from it with the burden of the Pegasus either. With so few choices to outrun the mysterious beast, I made the only logical action in my situation. I jumped into the abyss. I entered a strange state of bliss during my fall. I took comfort in the sleeping Pegasus's presence. She was the only thing keeping me from being alone now. I had to protect her at all costs. Without even looking, I knew the ground was coming up. I wrapped my body around the Pegasus in hopes that I could protect her from the impact. My back collided with the bottom of the abyss. The Pegasus rolled out of my grip out into the distance. I slowly rose to my feet and observed the new terrain. Dark tendrils moved in slow motion across the empty plain, obscuring anything that it might be harboring. A shadow darted across my field of vision, sharply contrasting the slower movement of the tendrils surrounding it. A blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the plain. A chill coursed through my veins as I recognized it as the Pegasus's. I sprinted towards the sound of the shriek. "Please don't be dead. Please don't be dead. Please don't be dead," I begged. A trail of yellow feathers appeared on the black, glassy floor. I followed them, knowing that they would lead me to the Pegasus. The further I progressed, the more feathers were soaked in crimson. At the end of the trail, standing in the middle of the many scattered, crimson-red-stained feathers, was a tall, slim figure. He was staring directly at me. His hood masked his face from sight. In one of his hands rested a bloody hatchet. The sight was appalling enough for me to leave. The insane cackling he made as he watched me just seemed to be a bonus.
"Hunter,"
he called out. His voice sounded so familiar.
"It's your turn."
"No." The words barely stumbled out of my mouth. No, 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 no. Pegasus was gone. I was all alone. The wretched monster started laughing again. He deliberately took slow steps towards me, knowing that there was no hope for my escape. He playfully swung his hatchet back and forth at his side as he chuckled to himself. I couldn't take my eyes off him. It was as if he had me under some sort of strange hypnotic spell. The most I could do was stagger away from him. A wall happened to spawn behind me, preventing me from backing up any further. The hooded figure laughed with murderous glee.
You're all alone, Hunter.
He cackled.
No one to turn to. No one to run to. It is just you and us.
His clouded face suddenly covered the distance between us. His breath reeked of carrion. I grabbed the back of his hood and yanked it back. The shadows around him quickly dispersed, allowing me to see his face for the first time. Dull blue eyes were staring back into mine. His short, dark brown hair was a scruffy mess of what it once was. A few strands of gray littered his head, despite his youth. His sun-deprived skin reflected whatever poor light was in the vicinity. I could recognize that face anywhere. I saw it every time I looked in a mirror. His grin deepened as he lifted his hatchet.
Pleasant dreams, Hunter.
He giggled. With a quick wink, he let the weapon fall. I watched, frozen in horror, as the instrument of my death sliced through the air towards me. The blade connected to my skull. I screamed into the night as the world suddenly shifted around me. I searched wildly around the barely lit zone for that thing, whatever it was. Sweat soaked my body despite the cool air flowing through some of the shattered windows. It was just a dream, I told myself. Just a bad dream. It wasn't even night yet. The sun was just starting to set on the horizon. My eyes swept across the room one last time before I heaved a sigh. I reluctantly let go of the death grip I had on the arms of the chair. Just a dream, I repeated. I allowed myself to relax a little at the thought. That thing, that reflection of me wasn't real. It was all inside my head. I leaned my head back against the padded seat. As scared as I was about having another nightmare, I couldn't have let it get in the way of my sleep. Who knew? Maybe this time would be a bit more peaceful.